Hello, welcome to another Music Ally Focus with me, Music Ally's editor Joe Sparrow, and in this episode we speak to Ines Dunn, a young songwriter from London who has writing credits in songs like Maisie Peters' Not Another Rockstar and is one of the first songwriters to be featured by Spotify's Radar program. We ask her about the obvious and not so obvious benefits of a songwriter getting major support from a streaming platform in this way. Now, each Music Ally Focus podcast episode analyzes one meaningful music business perspective at a time, and so this podcast is going to be quick. It should take about the same amount of time as it would take Andy Collins to fill 300 eclairs with whipped cream. He filled 13 in 1 minute in 2007, and we think that's a record that is surely begging for a brand new attempt. Now, talking of whipping up enthusiasm, artists being selected by a key tastemaker and seeing a tension around their career develop as a result is nothing new. However, in today's music industry, one of the biggest fillips an artist's career can receive is by being part of one of the major streaming platforms' artist programs, which at its most flashy can result in your face being plastered across a billboard in Leicester Square in London. That's what happened to Ines Dunn, and so we spoke to her about her nascent career, how she ended up on Spotify's Radar program, and what the tangible benefits are of getting such high-profile support like this at this point in her career. Let's go over to Ines right now. Okay, so we're really happy to be joined by Ines Dunn here on the Music Ally Focus podcast. Hi, Ines.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, very welcome. First of all, just a bit of introduction and information. So who are you? What is the music you write like? And what are your ambitions as you embark on your career? What's going on?
Well, so I'm Ines Dunn. I just turned 21 last week, which was severely fun. And what's the music I write like? I feel like I've been in a bit of a pop vein. Well, I love pop music for starts, so I feel like that heavily is a big part of the music I make. But I feel like a big thing for me is just being as like versatile and I guess like creatively stimulating as possible. So I feel like it will always come back to pop, and my goal in life is to make the best pop songs I humanly can.
Right.
But there's like so many more areas of music that are amazing.
So you are a songwriter as opposed to as a performer first and foremost, right? And was songwriting something that came very naturally to you? Just to get that little bit of background, because as a sort of frustrated musician myself, I find it like I can press all the buttons and strum all the strings, but like the songwriting part is very hard.
I mean, this is really funny because I would love to say that it was something that came naturally. But I always joke about so I went to a theatre school when I was younger, and my family's very creative. My parents were in advertising, my sister's a dancer, my brother's also in advertising and like studied art for years. And when I went to theatre school, there was like one teacher who was like, anybody who writes a song can go to a recording studio. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go to a recording studio. And I went home and told my parents that I wanted to be a songwriter. Right. And so now I always joke that I'm only doing this because I told my parents I would when I was 12, which is semi-true. There's probably about 50% truth in that, and then 50% truth in the fact that I actually have I feel like I've learned to love songwriting. I feel like it's something that I kind of committed to,
right?
And then I've really found like a deep love for it, and it does really feel like the thing that I always wanted to do and always was like gonna do. But yeah, no, it hasn't come naturally. Right. I feel like maybe it has come a bit naturally, but I also think I've like worked really hard for it to come naturally.
So you've worked on the craft side of it to get to on your skills and your ability.
I almost feel like I've studied it so much that it has come naturally in a weird way, because I feel like I've learned the foundations of it in a million different aspects that it just kind of all concocted into hopefully actually being relatively good at it.
Not to draw a parallel between you and Picasso, but the way that Picasso had to learn to paint perfectly before he could paint anything else.
Well, I've been thinking about this so much because I went to the Helmut af Klint and the Pierre Mondrian exhibit at the Tate the other day. And then I also went to the Van Gogh exhibit in Amsterdam last summer. And maybe this is a really dumb thing of me to say and not realize until now, but it's that thing of like, when you go to a Van Gogh exhibit, I feel like you expect the Starry, Starry Night and all the like swirls and the really like interesting movement in the painting, but then you like start off at the exhibit and it's like his paintings of the peasantry in France, and it's like so real. But it's like the realism is like insane, and so you're like, oh, you can draw perfectly, like and it's the same with the Hilma af Klint and the same with Pierre Mondrian. They can draw things perfectly before they choose to not, and I think it's like a choice. And I kind of think music's the same. I think you have to like it's like learning the rules to break the rules. It's like you have to know what everybody else can do to know how to do something newer or more interesting or your own way.
You've got to go there to come back. Now, you've as a songwriter, you've been involved in Spotify's radar program, and that's the kind of thing I was interested in talking to you about, because traditionally the radar program and any kind of supporting programs from DSPs has been around promoting upfront talent in terms of the artist and the face and that side of things. But totally. Obviously, in your case, it's a little bit different because you're the songwriter. And so I'm interested in that. How did that come about? How did you get involved in that program?
There's an amazing lady called Mel Svensson who works at Universal Publishing. Universal. And she, I think the opportunity came through her from what I know. And there's an amazing man at Spotify called Aaron Buckingham, who has kind of been the spearhead of this entire thing. And when I was 17, Aaron put me on a camp, like a dance and electronic camp at Metropolis. And I was at music college, and like 2 students, me and one other guy, were lucky enough to kind of like be invited along.
Right.
And Aaron was there, and it was like a really nice 360 moment where like I think Aaron had kind of like remembered that I existed from that camp, and that I was like around doing songwriting, and had kind of got in touch and wanted to do the radar program, and it was something that I was like, oh, this is like amazing, and of course like I would love to be a part of it, and that's so nice. And I kind of expected it to be like one post on Instagram and it was going to be great, but that was like it.
You're getting a billboard in Leicester Square.
And Times Square. It was like it was the weirdest thing where it was like Aaron was kind of like, oh, will you like come by the office? And I was like, yeah, okay, like that's fun. And then we filmed an interview, and then we did like an interview for like a music blog as well. And then we went to Leicester Square and we saw the billboard.
Right.
And that was just kind of like it was like tenfold times what I thought it was going to be. And so there's been this like amazing kind of content rollout that's been included with it that I really wasn't expecting, and it's been amazing, really, especially for a songwriter who's like, I think when you sign up to be a songwriter, you sign up for never having those things and almost like never thinking you'd get them. But Spotify, I mean, they've been amazing with like giving a platform to.
So what does the opportunity offer you? Like what? I mean, like having your face on a billboard is a nice thing. I can imagine. Yeah. But like beyond that,
very intimidating.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But beyond that, what does it offer you? What do you get out of it perhaps in a sort of more nuts and bolts way?
Well, I think it's in a kind of simple way. There's a world outside of the music industry that. In which Spotify is their primary streaming platform, and there's like it's like 90% of the world, like it's an insane amount of people go via Spotify and watch the content. And like Spotify, I was lucky enough that they gave me like a written by playlist, and they were like, they made a radar, I think it was like a radar artist or a radar songwriters playlist, and they featured my songs in that, and they plug that into all the users, and it's like it becomes a different caliber of people who are recognizing songwriters, because it becomes not just the music industry, which hopefully like I would say that most of the people in the music industry end up knowing about most of the songwriters anyway. And so in that sense, maybe you're gaining one or two more like artists, or not artists. Yeah, maybe artists, or like A&Rs and managers, and a couple more people who are like recognizing who you are. But more than that, I think it's like the reach that Spotify has outside of that to kind of give highlight to songwriters is kind of unparalleled.
Right. So it's less about the sort of the connectivity to the industry as it is to.
Well, I'd say
listeners.
so. I mean, I've had like it's definitely helped in. I think having a Spotify campaign behind you as a songwriter almost legitimizes you in a way that you can't be otherwise. I think you can have your cuts, and of course you can have hits and you can have really successful songs, which is the goal and is the dream in life. And then, but I think having a name like Spotify to kind of like stand behind you and be like, we think she's worthy of this, I think kind of creates a different level of like backing maybe. And I think it was like a really nice nod for me to be like, it's okay, you're doing good, which felt really nice. And so it is also to do with the music industry. I don't want to brush over that too much because it definitely is. And I've definitely had people who have like I guess reached out because of it.
Yeah, I mean, the music industry is one of perception, isn't it? I mean, it's a combination of you have to have hits. The hits count, you know. Yeah. And that makes a difference, but it is about perception. If you're perceived as a respected songwriter, you become a respected songwriter, don't you?
Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly what Spotify have like managed to do. So I think they just go about it in such a classy way, and I think they give you an opportunity to talk about your music in the way that you want to talk about it. And I think that's like something that songwriters never get the chance to kind of have that voice to talk about the things that they do every day and talk about the songs that come out that are successful or aren't, or like projects that they love working on or things that they have coming up. And you never get to like hear a songwriter's brain behind the music that they make.
What would the repercussions of that being? Like if from a sort of perhaps like a user perspective, not the industry perspective, but for example, you do interviews or you write about or you talk about the music that you've been writing and the songs you've written. How has that sort of come back to you in terms of response from listeners or consumers, for instance?
You have a lot of I get like a lot of random messages being like, and it's actually really nice. And it's like people being like, oh, I found your Written By playlist, or, oh, I heard this song on this, again, this Radar playlist or whatever it is. And it's like, or I had like random friends who like aren't in music who were walking through Leicester Square and saw the billboard at the time it was on. And you're just like, it's definitely I think on a ground level, like my neighbor now thinks that I have a real job after the last 4 years of not thinking that I did, which is a big plus because now I don't have to convince her that I have a job. And so, it's been really nice. It's like you get loads of random messages, or there's been like, I think they've run a couple ads, and like my brother will like send me a screenshot of like his phone that pops up with like a random like, hey, listen to this playlist now or something, which has been amazing. And it's been, I don't know.
How does that feedback perhaps into your sort of, for your perspective as a writer, does that have a sort of positive influence on just, because any kind of creative work relies on confidence.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And
totally.
Anyone who's done anything creative knows that problem of struggling through times of low confidence or whatever.
Absolutely, every day of my life.
Yes. So this is where the podcast mutates into a therapy session. But how does it have a feedback on your sort of creative output then? Once you've got this backing, do you have like a straighter back and you're composing better, or how does it work?
Oh, definitely not. I wish that were the case. I wish that I became a better songwriter because of the campaign. But I think that I think, as I said before, it's definitely like a nice nod to know that you're going in the right direction. I think you can get really lost in this industry with like on like a minute level of the day-to-day basis. I think it's really easy to kind of forget what you're doing it for and like why you love it, because you're doing 6 sessions a week and with like a million different people, and there's not like a lot of structure and there's not a lot of output as well. It's like really the amount of songs you write versus the amount of songs that are released is like insane. And so I think when you spend every day of your life for not much output, and when the output happens, the chance of it being a hit is like tiny. That I think it definitely has some link to like knowing that you're headed on the right track, and like in those moments of, oh my God, what am I doing? To be like, no, it's okay. Like,
yeah, right. Okay.
Somebody at Spotify cared about you enough to like put all this effort into you. So
what do you do with all those songs that you put a lot of time into, and then you kind of go, I'm going to put this on the shelf? Do you ever come back to them, or do you just sort of move on?
I spend every day of my life trying to come back to them. Right. I think it's like, I think you end up holding out hope that one day something good will happen for that song. And the ones that, I think I've got quite like a high threshold in terms of my own music. I'm really hard on myself as well as people around me. I think being like a really good level of there's a lot of good constructive criticism that I'm around. And so we kind of operate hopefully at like a relatively good level of like knowing what ones are realistically hopefully going to have a good shot in the future and which ones are you're just like holding out hope for because you liked writing that song.
Right. So what are those kind of what's that checklist where you like you play a song and say, right, I've got a good feeling about this, and then you sort of go through it and think, oh no, actually no, this wouldn't be this is a good song but not a commercial
hit. I don't really know how to verbalize it. If it just feels like you can kind of break it down of it like logistically into like a good melody or a good lyric or like a great vocal take or whatever that, or like an amazing production, like whatever it is. But I think it's like a weird marital happening of like all of the above. And I think there's sometimes I always like to think about music that you're always like 5% away from writing the best version of a song of your entire life every day. But I think you just spend those days trying to find it, and sometimes you never do. And then and in those rare moments where everything just aligns, I think that's the magic, and like those are the songs worth holding out for.
So it's a bit like fishing. You've got to just totally. The process of doing it is what makes you get to pull out the big fish. Totally.
And it's like you just have it's literally just stars aligning. Like I don't really know how else to describe it other than like on that day somebody played the right set of chords that made you think the right thoughts, that made you sing the right things. It's like it just doesn't really make sense.
It's kind of frightening to think how much luck like the role luck plays in breakthroughs in life, isn't it? And we don't really want to think of it like that because we put so much hard work into things.
No, but I also think it's like I think you kind of do all that hard work in order for the luck to have its best shot of coming through. Yeah, it's funny.
Now, we talk a lot at Music Ally about these kind of support programs from streaming platforms, and of course, there's a lot of give and take here. Like they're supporting you, you're getting all this good stuff out of it. Totally. I don't mean this in a cynical way, but what do you think the benefits are? Why is Spotify doing this? Do you think what is in it for them to put your face on a billboard, to support you and showcase your work as a writer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels almost like an untouched territory for Spotify potentially, like that kind of behind the music aspects. They obviously had the Genius program that they ran like a couple of years ago, and they've had a really good backing for songwriters and producers. But it feels like, in the sense that every time we see a radar campaign or they have like the Our Generation things running at the minute, where it's like there's very artist heavy, and I think there's such a world of people behind the music. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they end up like doing an A&Rs or like a management or like a label thing eventually, because it's like that's also an untouched territory for them. But I think it's more like shining a light on the people who make the music is also, it's great for Spotify. They have links to the people who are putting the successful songs on their Spotify, and it's like a different kind of like I'm not including myself in that at all. That sounded really like
no. You go ahead. Like look, no. That sounded really. Up. You've got the platform.
No. I really didn't mean like that. I just realized when it came out of my mouth that it sounded like I was talking about myself, which I'm definitely not. But to run a program like Genius or to run what hopefully Radar Songwriters will turn into is like it's that different level of connectivity between the people who make the music and kind of other bridging of the gap between the artists that are singing the songs or like have the music out on their platform and the people who wrote it. So it feels like a connecting the dots thing maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I might be completely wrong on that, but
with all that in mind, then what you've learned a lot. You've had a lot of stuff, a lot of circumstances build this framework around you. You said you've got a good support system. You've got the support of Spotify. Obviously, not everybody. You've got a lot of songwriters listening who are not on the radar program, and maybe they can in the future, or maybe they won't, or like you say, life has many paths. So, what do you have any sort of, from your perspective? I know you're starting out at the moment, but it's interesting to get the sort of career perspective of someone who is starting out.
Yeah.
What is the sort of advice you would pass on to songwriters who are listening, and perhaps they're ambitious as you, they're working hard, they're building the support network around them, they want to achieve what you're achieving, and they don't have the radar support yet. What would you sort of say to them?
I feel like good things happen when you just try your best at being good at what you do. I don't really know, like, I was not expecting anything from just trying to write songs every day. And I think that you always like go about, and like I will for the next like hopefully 30, 40 years of my life, is just like you just try and make the best music you can make. And I think when you keep your head down, people are paying attention to what you do. Like people just are noticing that hard work. And I think that it's like you have to have that blind faith that things will just come together, and I think they do for good people who do good things. And like I think if you just spend your I don't know, I'm saying as someone who I just spend my life hopefully trying to be like a good person who hopefully makes good songs. But
you're not being judged here, by the way. Like you don't have to prove it.
No, but this is like, this is just what I think about every day, is like how to just be better at my job. And I think that it's the cliche thing to say, but like this is just the 10,000 hours job. Like you just only get good by doing it all the time. And I think that when I joke about me saying I'm doing this because I said I would when I was 12, it's like, it is that, but it's also, I then just spent like every day trying to be good at it. And then I think that also plays into like how good you eventually become, hopefully. And I have so far left to go, so I'm not really one to like give this advice, but I do think it's like having the like waking up in the morning and wanting to make music and wanting to get better.
So it's part of it is about really finding your. It sounds silly to say finding your passion, but like finding something that like you're truly motivated about, and then just digging in.
Yeah, I think it's becoming the best you can be at the thing that you specialize in. I think like there's a million songwriters who are amazing at a million things. And that is the goal, I think, is to like be the best you can be at in various different fields. Writing songs is actually, it is on paper like the funnest job in the entire world. And yeah, it actually is the funnest job in the entire world in a lot of moments, but also it's like a weirdly like mentally taxing job where you, and like emotionally taxing job where you kind of like, the amount of rejection you deal with in this industry is insane. And so it almost kind of like leads back to having that like self-fire. Like you need to be a self-starter. You need to have that like pit in your stomach that wakes up every morning and is like, I know that yesterday was a hard day and that this happened and this happened and this happened, but like I'm still going to wake up and I want to be the best songwriter.
And you've got to be mentally tough as well, I guess.
You definitely, I mean, I feel like there's like a natural resilience that gets built up, and I think you have to be willing. You have to be willing to like withstand it for the sake of your love for music. And for the sake of like the human connection that happens between like when you're in a co-writing session or with the artist that you make music with, and for the result, and like that you have like amazing moments. I feel like life grants you these amazing moments where you're like, I don't know, sat in front of 90,000 people at Wembley Stadium watching a song be performed at a random thing. I was lucky enough to have that at like Summertime Ball, and you just
who was that? Just for context, who was
it?
That?
Was Mimi Webb.
Right.
Playing a song called House on Fire.
Oh, right, yeah.
That I did with my friends Pablo and Charlie, who are amazing. And I was just sat there like, oh, okay, like this is the moment where you're supposed to take it in and be like, this is what it's for. Like this is the payoff, so that for the next year and a half when you're in the dungeons of like the songwriting jail, that you kind of remember that moment and be like, oh, okay, it's going to be worth it, and it's worth it for a million different reasons. But it's a long game. And
I'm sure having your face on a billboard feels good, but that must feel really good in a different way as well.
Different levels of satisfaction.
Yes. Finally, then, if you could only listen to one piece of music for the rest of your life, it could be an album or it could be a song.
Oh no.
What would it be?
Oh no. Oh, this is an awful question.
Always the hardest one.
Oh, I just feel like I'm rejecting. Oh no.
Yeah, but you've got to. But like there's no. I mean, we have to sort of buy into the idea that you have to choose one.
Can I say like an artist? Is that cheating? Or is it?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on. An artist catalog is fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, now I'm just gonna have two. I'm just gonna say them anyway. I would say like Simon and Garfunkel,
right,
or ABBA.
Right. So you did say at the start you're a pure pop person, and there you go.
I love pop music. Is that telling? Maybe.
I don't think anyone's going to argue with Simon and Garfunkel and ABBA, so that's
no, yeah, hopefully not. I feel like I've rejected all the greatest people in music, but
I mean, Lennon and McCartney, I guess I've got a shout in there, but that's fine.
Yeah. You're like, no, the Beatles can be fun, yeah.
You got to kill your babies, yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. I think you're the first person. I think you're actually the first person to suggest ABBA when I've asked that question, which is
no
weird.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels illegal.
They go for something very niche that is very meaningful to them, or something that they're trying to get, I think, longevity out of. Like, well, Miles Davis Kind of Blue often comes up because they think that I can get quite a lot of value out of that. I can listen to it 100 times and hear something different every time. So it's a very different approach. So I appreciate that. Okay, Ines Dunn. Well, I'll put some links to your writers page, your Notable page, and some other bits and pieces so people can investigate you beneath the podcast.
Thank you so much.
But thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, big thanks to Ines for joining us, and do check out the playlist of all her songs that is below the podcast. Now, if you found that useful, please share it on with someone else who you think will get something out of it. And if you want to get in touch with me, that would be great as well. You can email me on joe@musically.com. That's Joe, Joe, @musically.com. Don't forget, if you want to stay in touch in another way, we have a free weekly email called The Knowledge, which rounds up bits and pieces of the best analysis, news, marketing insight, and so on and so forth from Music Ally's wider subscription services. So you can sign up with the link beneath the podcast as well and impress your friends. That's it. So thank you for listening. I've been Joe Sparrow. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, farewell.